You are listening to another AlwaysMoto production. The AlwaysMoto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections, the results. We interview your favourite riders. It's the AlwaysMoto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
All right, welcome into episode 155 of the AlwaysMoto podcast, or in this case, it's the live YouTube stream. Hopefully we have no hiccups tonight. We are making about a fourth or something attempt at doing this live show. We were meant to be here last week. We apologize. We couldn't connect. It's the service. I don't know. Whatever it is, I've got Starlink, but it doesn't seem to want to play the game for us. But we're here. We're trying it. We're running it. We're probably going to have our man here on the side drop off in a few times, but we'll get to his introduction in a second. But this podcast, as much as I say it's proudly presented by, he's probably a little embarrassed by our efforts recently, but it's technicmotorsport.com. He's here helping us out. Anything suspension-wise that you need to check out technicmotorsport.com. As always, I'm your host, David Hogan. I am a physiotherapist, but I love my moto. We do talk things, injuries, fitness, results, everything motocross and supercross here, because everything on this channel is always about moto, hence AlwaysMoto. But we've got on the screen here at the same time, he's still here. It's the AlwaysMoto contractor, Ben Grinly. Mate, what are you doing?
Oh, sorry. I was just having my recovery water, as our Boost AusX ambassador likes to call it, except drinking it the right way.
Oh, mate, have you been taking a leaf from Reese Walsh's toilet water recovery that he's got going on?
Yes, apparently it works wonders, but I'm not so sure.
Don't you love it when we get some high-profile person involved in the sport of Supercross here in Australia, and then 2 days later or whatever it was, they're drinking toilet water. It's a great look.
Yeah, it's not a good look at all. And then to tap this weekend as well, throwing some headbutts around on the field at players. It's it hasn't been a good 2 weeks for Reese Walsh.
Look, if his idea was to get as much attention on himself as possible, he's succeeded. Tick, job done. But he could have maybe put an AusX Supercross Boost Mobile logo on his forehead as he went for that headbutt, mate. I don't know. Maybe that would have worked a bit better for us. But anyway, look, our choice in ambassador maybe was a little but anyway, he is what he is. He'll be probably at that Red Cliffs round in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe we can ask him a question or two, because if he's there for the press day, Benny, maybe that'll be an awkward little situation. We can ask him about his recovery water or something.
Yeah, if you're a game man, you can ask him, but I'm not sure it'll go down well.
Are you saying? You're suggesting I'm going to
cop on? Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah. Look, anyway, all right. Well, let's move into the rest of the show. So we're going to cover some super motocross things from the last 2 weeks, and obviously this weekend's the final round in Las Vegas. We won't touch on it heaps, but we're going to touch on a few things. We're going to talk about the Boost Mobile Australian Supercross Championship that's coming up. We're about a month, just under, or just on, out from it starting. So that's pretty cool. And at the end of the show tonight, we've actually got a pre-recorded interview that I did with round 2 winner of the Super Motocross next program. No, unfortunately, we didn't get Caden Menier, the Aussie, on to this show. That would have been a good link up. But anyway, we'll come back to that one another time. But we've got the Night 2 winner, Ryder Malinowski. We had a bit of a hookup there. Our man Ty Rayfield over in Club MX, working for the club team. He hooked us up with Ryder. So we got a pre-recorded one that I did with him earlier today. When that comes about, I'm expecting some absolute schmozzle, Benny. This is where I think our tech issues are going to kick back in, because I've got that to run on top of the stream. So if the show just pauses at that point, we'll apologize, and we'll tell everybody that's in a second YouTube video. It'll come out as a part 2, like we did that other show that we did. But hopefully it all just runs tonight, and we'll see how we go. So let's crank along. Now, I'm just getting a warning here that my microphone's not working, but hopefully it's all still good. All right, so in terms of Super Motocross and what's been happening, obviously we've had the Charlotte round. It was a bit of an abbreviated round with Lightning, but we got the usual winners as we expected. Jet in the 450 class, Deegan in the 250 class. St. Louis was a bit of a change-up. Mr. Round 2 came out to play, it seems. They're now nicknaming him Hunter Lawrence as Mr. Round 2. Pretty good ride from him, wasn't it, Benny, at in St. Louis there, particularly at Moto 1?
Yeah, no, it was a good ride. And, think back to last year in the SMX rounds, he did really well and ended up, I think Jet and Hunter tied in points, but it just went on the moto score. So as soon as the SMX rounds come out, he seems to want to play. But it's good that you get out front, lead the whole race and to win. But it sort of goes a bit unnoticed when you've got Jet charging all the way from the back to put us all on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, look, that was probably the most exciting part of the night, other than the 10 seconds where Levi Kitchen decided to put a little move onto Hayden Deegan, and the two of them decided to blow themselves up for the rest of the night. So yeah, that ride from Jet, very impressive. A track that many people enjoyed riding, but probably didn't enjoy trying to pass on. But he seemed to find 2 or 3 spots that he knew what he could do, and he stuck to them, and yeah, made it look relatively easy. But that's not unusual for Jet Lawrence, really, is it?
No, and I think the cutting down in the corner we saw more of as he was trying to get Tomac, but that cutting down in the corner was a lot of time gained against sort of the back of the pack, so that helped him with the early passes. But he's just insane. It's the stuff he can do on the bike and the way he can get around people when there is no everyone else is struggling is just crazy.
Yeah, the fact he rolled, like, I have to say, I wasn't going to bring this one up, but I just remembered it really, and it's sticking out as a pretty big thing. But the way he rolled up on the Chase Sexton, and Chase was what, sixth or something at the time, and passed him, and then just left him for dead. Chase didn't follow him through the rest of those couple of passes that Jet did end up making. Didn't get anywhere. He just sort of sat where he was, and for one, that was impressive because those two are considered to be somewhat by many in the field, in the industry and in the spectating, that they're similar sort of pace depending on the day and who gets a start. But for him to do that to Chase in the moto, that had to be a mental break for Chase. And whether that was part of what sort of destroyed the end of his last lap in Moto 2, don't know. But that can't be a good mental feeling for him, having Jet come up from behind him and then ride past him and just off into the distance.
Yeah, you got to think when Jet passes Chase that it's just like, oh man, again, and then to gap him like he did, it's just it's the same old story.
Yeah, unfortunately, just a similar sort of thing there. Now, in the 250 side of things, Joe Shimoda was sick, but 2-2 moto scores, first overall. You wouldn't have picked it other than the fact that he skipped out on the press conference.
Yeah, no, he's riding really well, and we've all ridden when we're sick, and it's it's not fun. So for him to come and pull that out is is a really good effort, and he's leading the championship now, so it paid off.
Well, I've said this on plenty of our other shows, but for anyone new to just finding us on like the YouTube side of things, when I've talked about this on the podcast in the past, the week that you're sick isn't necessarily the issue. If you can manage to, control maybe the snotty nose or the spewing in between the motos, if it's a stomach bug or whatever, that side of things is usually manageable that week of the illness. Your energy is okay. You've actually essentially had a rest for the week because you've probably been off the training like you normally would. The problem and the harder part comes week 2 or week 3 after the illness has been recovered, because you actually did have that big chunk of time off. You lose a little bit of that training effect and that bike skill, that touch of feel of being on the bike regularly. It wasn't there for that period, and that shows up week 2 or week 3. So hopefully for Joe, being only one round to go, one, he can get clear of that by Vegas this weekend. But two, hopefully it's close enough that he doesn't see any of that effect that I've talked about in the past, because that's usually where you see the results taper off just a touch, and he doesn't need that. He needs a second or better. So that's what Joe's hoping for this weekend, and nobody to play silly buggers.
Yes, we know that can that can definitely play a part.
I wonder, do you reckon that there'll be anything like Joe doesn't have a teammate in this scenario? Chance Hymas has been out for a long part of the season now. Hayden Deegan has what? He's got Nate Thrasher. He's got Max Anstey. I'm missing somebody, I feel like. But yeah, he's got a couple of teammates that could line up and make things a problem for Shimoda, at least maybe in the first corner or the first lap or two, or even while they're getting lapped.
And yeah, oh, he's got Kyle Davies too. You forgot that one.
Thank you. I forgot one. I knew I forgot one.
Yeah, but yeah, it's probably not going to make life easy. But also Joe's been sort of above those three. So if you can get a start, I think he'll be clear. It's just only if Deegan's going to come from behind that that might be a problem.
Yeah, well, that's going to make for some interesting watching. I think the motos this weekend, and we've had our first dropout right at that 5-minute mark, so we'll get him back here in a second. But yeah, those motos this weekend are going to be interesting just purely from the entertainment aspect, because it isn't just as simple as them showing up and winning out, because there's going to be, for one person to win, it's got to be done in terms of some sort of other move to happen to somebody else. So I'm just saying, Benny, as you dropped out, that like these motos are going to be interesting because it's not just winner take all. It's winner's got to have a help in Deegan's case, and Shimoda's got to not get any help to disadvantage him. So it's be an interesting weekend on the moto side of things. In the 250 class, obviously it's 450. It's not over until it's done. Jet still has to put in good motos, so should be interesting. But the track itself, the track map, looks more motocross than anything else, which isn't too dissimilar from what it was last year, really, in Vegas.
Yeah, it looks similar from the track map that I saw. And Jet dominated in that. So the way Hunter's riding and the way Jet's riding, I think it's going to come right down to that last moto again. And if he gets a start like he did in that first moto on the weekend, and he's going to come back through the pack, might be a bit more easier to pass this week. But yes, I think starts are key this week and stay out of trouble.
Very much an important part, definitely, that start for this weekend for a number of riders, but particularly Jet and Joe, let's say, as the minimum. All right, let's talk some of the injuries that have happened in the last few weeks, and we're going to kick it off with probably the bigger one of all of it, and it was coming off the back of a return from injury for Julien Beaumer. Everyone's heard. If you haven't heard, you should check out the social posts on it. But that L3 burst fracture for Beaumer is a pretty serious injury. I actually made a bit of a post on X when a day or so after I saw all the information that was starting to come out. A lot of the other media outlets put out that it was just sort of like, oh yeah, he's just broken his vertebrae, which he has, but it was very nonchalant. That they didn't seem to put any emphasis on it. And I don't know if you remember this, Benny, but burst fracture is what Jeremy Martin had when he had that crash back at Muddy Creek when he was on Geico Honda days, and kept him out for, I think he was out of action for about a year or so. And he had some other complications along the way and had to have things redone, but it's a serious situation. And the only difference for Jeremy Martin was it was an L1, which is slightly higher in the lower back region. So this isn't as just plain and simple as any other injury or any other fracture. This is some serious business. On a positive side, Julien Beaumer has been up, and Benny, you've seen this. He's been up in the hospital beds already, walking around the wards and whatnot. But he's braced up. Doesn't look fantastic, that's for sure. The visual of him in a hospital gown never looks plush for anybody. Your ass is usually hanging out the back. Do you have that problem, Benny, when you're in a hospital gown?
Yeah, maybe once or twice.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all been there, and it's not pretty. But yeah, look, he's got a long road to recovery, and whether this might be a bit harsh, but like whether we see him in Supercross at all, I would not be surprised if that doesn't happen. And even to some degree, some portion of outdoors is potentially on the cards here. If he's back sooner, it'd be one of those, for me, it'll be one of those situations where it's a wow, that was a quick recovery. Um, and, but it's possible. We've seen some stupid injury return timeframes in this sport, a la Jet with the knee this year that nobody seems to remember he even had a knee injury. Did you see that knee dab that he did in the sand this week in the practice, Benny?
Yeah, I held my breath a little bit. And
But
I think there was one in the first moto too, which I also held my breath at.
yeah, but like you look at it and you're like, oh wow, that was only like technically he's racing now, and people would still be out from that same injury, and he's there dabbing his foot in the sand sections, like nothing ever happened. So we do have some crazy recovery times, but yeah, the Beaumare situation is a very much a let's watch this space and see what happens, because I'll be surprised if we see him race a Supercross in 2026. We may, but I'll be shocked, and I'll eat my words if I have to. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Let's talk about some push-ups. How many push-ups can you do, Benny?
With my bung shoulder at the moment, probably
None?
none.
Yeah, probably
To
none.
be
Now,
honest.
I'm glad you answered that response. But push-ups, the reason I bring up push-ups, if anybody didn't see the coverage in the extended section of the Charlotte Super Motocross stuff when they were trying to fill airtime while the lightning was going on, they had Aaron Plessinger in the pits. Now, Plessinger is out, not injured. He's out with a recovery from an illness at the moment. Now, everyone's carrying on. Oh, it's not Epstein-Barr, which I say is the Moto virus. It's my little hashtag when I post about it. But they're saying that some virus has caused him to have some issues where he can't, when his heart rate elevates, he loses all his energy, essentially takes longer to recover, all that sort of stuff. Now, if I'm Aaron Plessinger and I'm there signing autographs as a, part of my contractual arrangements as being on the team whilst injured, do you think, Benny, it's a great idea to be on the coverage, pumping out as many push-ups as you can in about 30 seconds a minute with a fan?
I wouldn't have thought it would be a good idea.
I love Plessinger. The man's awesome. I've got a cool photo of him that I took at Southwick, and I gave him a copy, and he signed one for me. I love AP. I just look at that optics and thought, there's something off here.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what the team think of me. He is doing it right in front of the team truck, but AP loves the fans love him. I guess at least he's still at the races, you're still seeing the fans. But I'm sure KTM and Red Bull and all the other sponsors would rather him on the bike than doing push-ups in front of the truck.
Yeah, look, set up like a fake bull head with horns and get him a lasso and make him, throw the lasso onto the bull horns and see if he beats the fans that way. Don't do push-ups, man. When you if that's going to jack your heart rate pretty quick. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just felt that was a bit in terms of optics from why he's out at the moment. But anyway, we'll move on. Max Volan. What an unfortunate end to his season that's happened in St. Louis. I actually had a decent full year going for the first time in a while with Club MX after his multiple hip issues and other things that he's had with Proso Kawasaki and previously KTM USA. But yeah, dislocated elbow. Benny, they hurt. That's a lot of force to get that elbow out.
Yeah, the picture didn't look great. If anyone's seen the picture, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, and I wouldn't think it would have been a nice feeling either.
No, they take so much force to get that joint